I am disappointed. This is a time of shame and sorrow. It is not a day for politics. I have saved this one opportunity to speak briefly to you about this mindless menace of violence in America, more specifically St. Louis, which again stains our land and every one of our lives. It is not the concern of any one race. The victims of the violence are black and white, rich and poor, young and old, famous and unknown. They are most importantly of all human beings whom other human beings loved and needed. No one, no matter where he lives or what he does, can be certain who will suffer from some senseless act of bloodshed, violence in general, or any other vindictive acts. And yet it goes on and on. What happened to our young brother Michael Brown is, and I say is, a tragedy. Unarmed, yes. Executed, yes. Entire life ahead of him, yes. All those things being true, yes. But then I must interject and ask myself, why? What has violence and destruction ever accomplished, especially for our people? What has it ever created? No martyr's cause has ever been steeled by his assassin's bullet, nor by the hands of which that destroys his community. No wrongs have ever been righted by riots and civil disorders. A sniper is only a coward, not a hero, and an uncontrollable mob is only the voice of madness, not the voice of the people. Whenever any American's life is taken by another American unnecessarily, whether it is done in the name of the law or in the defiance of law, by no one man or gang, in cold blood or in passion, in an attack of violence or in response to violence, whenever we tear at the fabric of life, which another man has painfully and clumsily woven for himself and his children, the whole nation is then degraded. Among free men, said Abraham Lincoln, there can be no successful appeal from the ballot to the bullet, and those who take such appeal are sure to lose their cause and pay the costs. Yet we seemingly tolerate a rising level of violence that ignores our common humanity and our claims to civilization alike. We calmly accept newspaper reports of civilian slaughter and far-off lands. We glorify killings on movies and television screens and call it entertainment. We make it easy for men of all shades of sanity to acquire weapons and ammunition they so-called deserve. Too often we honor swagger and bluster and the wielders of force. Too often we excuse those who are willing to build their own lives on the shattered dreams of others. Some Americans who preach non-violence abroad fail to practice it here at home. Some who accuse others of inciting riots have by their own conduct invited them. Some look for scapegoats and scapegoats. Others look for conspiracies, but this much is clear. Violence breeds violence. Repression brings retaliation, and only a cleaning of our whole society can remove the sickness from our souls. For there is another kind of violence, slower but just as deadly, destructive as the shot or the bomb in the night. This is the destruction of institutions, indifferences and inaction and slow decay. This is the violence that afflicts the poor, that poisons the relations between men because their skin has different colors. This is a slow destruction of a child by hunger, in schools without books, and homes without heat in the winter. This is the breaking of a man's spirit by denying him the chance to stand as a father and as a man among other men. And this too afflicts us all. I personally have not come here to propose a set of specific remedies, nor is there a single set. For a broad and adequate outline, we know what must be done. When we teach a man to hate and fear his brother, when we teach that he is a lesser man because of his color or his beliefs or the policies he pursues, when you teach that those who differ from you threaten your freedom or your job or your family, then you also learn to confront others not as fellow citizens, but only as your enemies. To be met not with cooperation, but with conquest, to be subjugated and mastered. We learn at the last to look at our brothers as aliens, men with whom we share a city, but not a community. Men bound to us in common dwelling, but not in common effort. We learn to share only a common fear, only a common desire to retreat from each other, only a common impulse to meet disagreement with force. For all this, there are no final answers. Yet we know what we must do. It is to achieve justice among our fellow citizens. This question is now what programs we should seek to enact. The question is whether we can find in our own midst, in our own hearts, that leadership of human purpose that will recognize the terrible truths of our own existence. We must admit the vanity of our false distinctions among men and learn to find our own advancement in the search for the advancement of all. We must admit in ourselves that our children's future cannot be built on the misfortunes of others. We must recognize that this short life can neither be ennobled or enriched by hatred or revenge. Our lives on this planet are too short, and the work to be done too great to let this spirit flourish any longer in our land. Of course, we cannot vanish it with a program nor with a resolution. But we can perhaps remember, even if only for a time, that those who live with us are our brothers, that they share with us the same short movement of life, that they seek as we do nothing but the chance to live out their lives in purpose and happiness, winning what satisfaction and fulfillment they can. Surely this bond of common faith, this bond of common goal can begin to teach us something. Surely we can learn at least to look at those around us as fellow men, and surely we can begin to work a little harder to bind up the wounds among us and to begin in our hearts brothers and countrymen once again. But such efforts will always be stifled and stopped if we have demonstrations as there were last night. We cannot expect change in the name of violence. Take a moment and ask, what am I doing for the cause? Am I positively promoting it, or am I set on an agenda of my own? What is your answer? The more we change, the more things stay the same, because the few bad apples in the bunch want to act like animals instead of bonding together in harmony. Then when prejudices and discriminations exist where there should not exist, people want to yell and holler. What are you promoting, though? Are you promoting the change we need to see? Innocent people's livelihoods are not only in jeopardy, but some lost because of the thoughtless acts of the few. When so many are trying to be positive, from this moment on, let's, as Gandhi once said, be the change you want to see in the world. And I will leave on this note. I know that if I, a 19-year-old, can understand the repercussions of such outcomes and demonstrations, that it does not take much more for others to rise up, stand up, and understand what too is going on. My brothers and my sisters, my name is Wilnard Anderson, and we need to make a change.